Hey folks, welcome back to this edition of Ben's Bits. Last week we discussed why you should always be chasing your next success, and I had a great conversation with Ryan after we posted that video. And he had a great slogan that he lives by, and he says he's always after his new high score. And he followed that up with how he's very grateful when he has his successes, but he doesn't live there. And I thought it was a great summation of last week's video and said I'd give him a little bit of kudos this week. So this week I wanted to discuss bonds and just touch on inflation since we're hearing a lot about that in talks lately that we're having with clients. And let's have a very simplified teaching example on what a bond is. A bond is like a note, but the difference is the borrower is the U.S. government, a state, a local municipality, or a large corporation typically. All of those entities need money to operate with day-to-day expenses and need funding. And obviously they obtain funding by borrowing capital from the public by issuing bonds. And those bonds typically have a predetermined interest rate attached to them called a coupon. And I'm sure most of you have seen the similarities between bonds and notes, but they're very different investments. Here's an example of the two. When you buy a bond, let's say with $10,000, and there's a 5% coupon rate attached to it, well, let's say a 10-year maturity. In this example, you'd collect the interest payments at $500 a year for 10 years, and then at the date of maturity, you'd get your $10,000 back. With a note, you're doing something very similar, but when you buy a note, you're also getting the interest rate and monthly payments. So you can spend that same $10,000 at 5% for 10 years, but you're getting just over $1,250 a year. And that's 250% more with the same money in the same time frame. Ben, what does that have to do with inflation, you ask? Well, the greatest danger for a bond investor is rising inflation, and nothing scares bond traders more than positive news about full-time employment or strong economic growth. And that's why you're seeing a lot of strong arguments for bonds right now because of the state of unemployment and economic factors we're now facing as a nation. But before we go much further, and without sounding callous or apathetic towards the economy, that's why we don't like aspects of the bond market, because it's tied too closely to the negatives you hear in reports and press releases. But on the note side, it doesn't affect our business because we have a lot of options that we can employ to negate a lot of those issues that may arise. Now, those of you who interact on a regular basis with us know that we're very note-centric, and the reason we believe that is we just believe it's a better investment vehicle when compared to traditional investments like bonds, rentals, rehabs, money market accounts, and the like. But we believe that there's a better investment because you get more of the same money, like we covered earlier. And if you haven't seen that yet, you really should go watch the Note Versus series, because you'll see the real numbers and investments compared side by side. And it's even more evident in the market today, as you'll see. So how inflation affects bonds in the long run can be disastrous, because when inflation hits, your money isn't worth today what it will be in the future. And if you're familiar with time value of money, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And while we believe in having multiple investments in a portfolio, we want to be very tactful and strategic and make very targeted decisions. And inflation has a direct impact on your portfolio, and that's why we aren't big fans of bonds. So that's it for this edition of Ben's Bits. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.